Hello, and welcome back to the Lone Star Labor Pod, the weekly or approximately weekly podcast from the Texas AFL-CIO. My name is Madison White. I am a digital organizer for the Texas AFL-CIO. Today I'm actually by myself because Rick is on a well-deserved vacation, so hopefully he is living it up for all of us. But I'm here today. Last week we did not have an episode because our office was closed in observance of Juneteenth. So our staff, we shared around a list of Black-owned businesses in the Austin area and went to support some of our community members and really celebrate Juneteenth, which is a holiday about Black liberation and resilience and joy. So, but we're back this week with a really exciting guest. For the last Monday of Pride Month, we are speaking with Linda Morales from the Gulf Coast Area Labor Federation. Linda is a true inspiration and a champion for workers' rights, for women's rights, for gay rights. She is doing some really important work down in Houston, organizing our affiliates and just blazing trails, and she has been for a very long time. So I'm very excited to speak with her today. We are back to our weekly schedule. Next week is 4th of July, so our episode will air, but it'll air on Tuesday, the 5th. And that will be a really exciting episode as well. I'll share with you guys a teaser when we get back from our interview with Linda. But in the time since our last podcast episode, we have had a lot of news actually, but we'll start with the good news first. We had some more organizing victories here in Texas and across the country. So 2 new Starbucks stores voted to unionize. We now have 4 total in the state of Texas, 2 in Austin and 2 in San Antonio. There are a few other stores across the state that have filed for their union elections, but don't have dates yet. So hopefully very soon we will see that number go from 4 to even higher, and hopefully we'll see more stores filed to unionize soon. But we're very encouraged by the fact that we're 4 for 4 in Texas, you guys. Texas is a union state. Don't let anybody tell you differently. As somebody who is very dependent on Starbucks for my caffeine and will to live, this is great news for me. So you can go back to our episode with Mitch and Atlas, who are partners at the 45th and Lamar store, which was the first store in Texas to unionize. It was a great interview. We got to hear about, the triumph and what that meant to them, as well as some of the really horrible tactics that Starbucks is using to union bust, which it seems like every single day there's more union busting news coming out from Starbucks, but our partners and working people are not deterred. And so that's really inspiring to see them continue to fight for their rights, even when their multi-billion-dollar corporation is trying to stifle them. So we also saw the first ever Apple store unionized, I believe in Massachusetts, and a Chipotle unionized. And so big stuff is happening, you guys. Working people are fed the hell up with corporations telling them what to do and reaping in record profits while continuing to pay workers little to nothing. So those are really encouraging moments in what otherwise has been, I'm sure, a very difficult and dark week for a lot of us in the labor movement. I'm sure that I don't need to tell the listeners of this podcast that on Friday, Roe v. Wade was overturned. And it is an extremely distressing and frightening time, especially here in Texas, where we are already seeing anti-choice legislation be put in action, and we're seeing the real life consequences that this will have on working families. So it's a scary time, and a time when solidarity becomes more important than ever, because we know that our rights to bodily autonomy, to privacy, to love who we love, and to live the lives the way that we choose them is under attack. And all those things are linked and tied to other movements like the racial justice movement and, of course, workers' rights movements. So today we are going to be talking to Linda Morales, who knows all of those things very well. And I am super excited to get to hear her thoughts on Pride Month and being a union organizer in Houston and all that, so much more. So without further ado, let's jump into it and talk to Linda. And we are back with the Lone Star Labor Pod. I have a very special guest with me today. Linda, would you like to say hello to our listeners and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I am Linda Morales. I am the organizing coordinator for the Gulf Coast Area Labor Federation. I am union. I am for women's rights, for Latino rights, and for lesbian gay rights.
Beautiful. Well, you do some really amazing and important work over at the Gulf Coast. We know that Houston is really breaking ground with some amazing organizing efforts. Do you want to share a little bit more about what you do at the Gulf Coast?
Well, what I do here at the Gulf Coast, I mostly work with our affiliated unions, which 90 or 95 members, and I help them in their ability to build capacity for their unions. I run two particular projects, our Build Houston Better project, which is about raising workforce standards in construction. And I'm also point on the President's Organizing Initiative. And we're pleased that the President's Organizing Initiative, which is focused on organizing, we're doing some great work there. And obviously with the, with the challenge that we got from the convention on organizing, we're going to have to step it up a bit, but we're excited about the work that we're doing here.
So the President's Organizing Initiative, that is something that came down how recently? When do you know when that was started?
It's probably been, I would say, about 3 years old. The international presidents got together, and a few of them have made organizing a mission. And so that kind of broke into the President's Organizing Initiative. Down here in Houston, we have about 8 unions participating who've made that commitment. The work is to engage unions in more collaboration, and so that's what our work continues.
Awesome. And Houston was specifically chosen as a city to participate in the organizing initiative, and so you've probably seen some really remarkable progress happening. Is there anything from the President's Initiative that you want to talk about, like seeing grow or change, or any of the affiliates that you've gotten to work with over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I'm seeing, like I said, when we first started out, I think a little bit was about, building trust among the unions that were participating. I think that's been accomplished. We're seeing more collaboration, which is key to this. Years ago, I was hired by the national AFL-CIO to run one of the projects, multi-union projects in San Antonio. So the work of the POI, President's Organizing Initiative, is to do that. So what I'm seeing here in Houston, I'm seeing more participation from unions who want to do that collaboration. And so I'll spotlight one of them, our Fort Bend AFT and the painters. Just recently in Fort Bend County, worked on some worked on a respect campaign trying to get teacher pay raises and worker pay raises. It wasn't exactly what we had hoped for in terms of the percentage, but at least we're there. They know we're there, and we're not going to stop fighting for what we believe teachers and everyone in Fort Bend County deserves.
Awesome. I mean, it certainly feels like we're seeing a lot of momentum out of Houston, a lot of organizing victories. So you and your team are doing some really amazing and important work. So pivoting a little bit, it is Pride Month. It's almost the end of Pride Month. You shared your story recently in an interview talking about your life as an LGBT community member and an organizer. Do you want to talk a little bit about like Pride Month and what that means to you?
Well, Pride Month is is an important month, for me as a Latina lesbian activist. It means the freedom, right? The freedom that we all want, the freedom to love. But my work in the labor movement has been the catalyst for the work in the gay lesbian community. We both movements have often defended and depended on the same people. Gay, lesbian folks, we're working class. We've relied on the rights that have been secured by unions to protect us, and at times in the absence of legislative rights. And I know that over the years, the labor has counted, or the lesbian gay community, LGBTQIA plus, has counted on the broader labor movement to advance our rights as well. So there's a lot of intersection work that that both movements stand to gain from continuing to work together. And now with the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade, you know, and the threat of the right to marry is being threatened. So I know that there's going to be that's a point where we can all again come together. But definitely, labor and other communities, we work together for the same benefits that labor strives for: respect on the job, you know, collective bargaining agreement where things are written down so that everyone understands their rights. That's been the catalyst of the labor movement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that intersectionality you're speaking to is so important. And, you know, like we're seeing with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, Starbucks has said that they'll help to secure reproductive rights for their partners, but they can't guarantee it for their unionized stores, or, you know, gender affirming care for transgender partners at Starbucks and non-binary, non-gender conforming partners at Starbucks. They've said, you know, we just don't know if we're going to be able to offer those benefits to our unionized members. And it's really disgusting to see people's lives be, you know, threatened by these union busting techniques, you know, when we really should all be working to keep each other safe and lift each other up.
Exactly. Lord, I know the world of union busting as a union organizer. I've been part of many campaigns where working for the nurses, you know, seeing how large corporations would rather have these union busters come in and threaten their workers than having those nurses and professionals taking care of patients. It's horrible. And those union busters should be ashamed of themselves.
Absolutely. Well, and thinking about like our union members that are medical health providers, you know, our nurses work in hospitals that are now going to be burdened with Roe v. Wade being overturned and the decision of whether they can offer somebody life-saving care. It's just, it's really disturbing. And we know that working families will feel the brunt of having their reproductive rights limited, but also like our working people that are just trying to do their jobs and keep people safe. Like it's additional burdens that we all know that our healthcare providers really don't need.
That's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. So right when we think we've accomplished some things, the fight continues. And I'm glad that, you know, we have that working people have avenues like the labor movement, the gay movement, and other movements that can coalesce and help each other so that working people win.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know it's been a really crazy couple of weeks, and I would imagine that over the course of being an organizer in Texas, you've seen a lot of wild things come out of our state and come out of the national legislature. What gives you hope and resilience as an organizer?
Well, I know there's a lot of us in the movement that are good-hearted people and that want to see positive change. I don't have children, but I have nieces and nephews, and the work that I do now that I'm older is to make their lives better for the future. You know, I think my generation, the baby boomers, were more involved in politics than some communities. And so if I can be an agent of change or show people that, you know, we need to continue, that these rights are not just given to us. These rights have to be won, and that's why the fight must continue. I pray for a day that things will be okay, but you know, this conservative movement doesn't seem to want to stop. And so we have to be ready, and we have to coalesce, because labor can't do it alone. The gay movement cannot do it alone. We have to find like-minded people, carry our message across, and hopefully, at least in terms of elections, hopefully that the November election will have some positive changes. Some people say voting can't be the all answer, but you know, it is the all answer at the moment. It is the all answer in November. Everyone has got to vote, and vote the right way. If we don't, then we only have ourselves to blame. But we have a lot of work to do. lots of work to do. And building those coalitions is going to be key to that, and carrying the message deep, deep into our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't not have said it better. I mean, we know that there's so much on the line in November. I mean, there was so much on the line before last Friday with the Roe v. Wade decision, but now, I mean, and one thing that, you know, not everybody knows about Roe v. Wade is that it's not just about abortion rights. There's so much wrapped up in privacy and the right to autonomy that we're seeing be threatened. And now we know that there are lots of other landmark decisions, including, you know, the right to same-sex marriage and same-sex relationships that's now on the line. So turnout in November is incredibly urgent. Do you have any recommendations or things that you would tell people that are looking to get involved, maybe just as a community member, maybe as a member of a union that they haven't been the most active and they're looking to step up and be a real ally the next few months?
The beauty of the labor movement is that we have constituency groups, and involvement in those constituency groups is critical. You know, with a Pride at Work, with the Coalition of Labor Union Women, with the APRI, there's places that welcome people, you know, and you can start, you don't have to, you can start off, you know, ground up. You can start off at the bottom, learning about, you know, doing voter registration, voter education. And if that's what you want to do, perfectly, that's fine. But if you really want to get involved, you know, we have programs here where folks can come and volunteer. We welcome, you know, there's lots of work to be done. There's phone banking that needs to be done. There's knocking on doors that needs to be done. You know, make contact with your union, tell them, ask them, how can I help? I want to make a change, and get involved. There's plenty of avenues. We'll take you wherever. Well, you know, no experience necessary. We'll train you.
From your lips to God's ears, let's get on the doors. Let's make some calls, everybody. Like we've all got to really hustle to make some change in November and beyond. I mean, it's urgent. Yeah,
it is.
Linda, how long have you been a union member?
Been a union member well over 20 years.
What's your local? What local did you start with, at least?
I'm with OPEIU.
Okay.
277. Yeah.
Well, you are a force to be reckoned with in the labor movement, and we are so lucky to have you out there doing the work. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your truth with us. Is there anything that you want to plug, any last words that you want to share with our listeners before we give you back the rest of your day?
Well, just that, you know, people always say they don't want to get involved in politics. But look, that old adage, the personal is political and the political is personal, is so true. You know, every bit of one's life centers around some form of politics. You know, whether it's your water bill, whether my niece called me last night, she said, she's moving to a house. They said, well, I can't move in, they can't put my water on till the 4th. You know, I told her, look, tell them your aunt is moving in and she's elderly, because it's true. And sure enough, they changed it. But she, you know, we have, you know, the second thing I was going to do is tell her, call one of your elected officials, right? But she got it done with that. But everything in our lives that we do is political. And so when people say, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics, well, you better, because your property taxes are going up. You know, that's a form of politics. So we just need to do more educating. We just need to tell people, inform people that those that don't want to get involved in politics, give them a small task, and then grow from there. And it can be done.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And, you know, the things that you mentioned, like not everybody knows that like things like water or property taxes are political, which of course they are, you know, like it seems very evident to those of us that are maybe super ingrained in the work, but you know, where your stop signs go in your community is political. The budget that your local library has is political, all of that stuff. And, you know, we really need each and every one of our union brothers and sisters and the folks out there to get involved and to pay attention, because those things are also on the ballot in November, you know, and a lot of those races that have the most direct impact over your life are won by tiny margins. Like we saw, you know, even Jessica Cisneros' race in Texas 28th during the runoff election was decided by such a small number of people. So if everybody that was on the fence about voting, on the fence about volunteering, maybe didn't want to give up 2 hours of their Saturday to talk to their family members, make sure everyone had a ride to the polls. Like if everybody got off the fence and participated, we could have a really different outlook come November.
That's exactly right.
And we really need that.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Linda. We're so grateful for your wisdom and participation. It means a lot to all of us, and I'm sure our listeners are going to be very thrilled to hear you.
You're quite welcome. Appreciate that. Appreciate
an incredibly powerful and moving interview with Linda Morales from the Gulf Coast Area Labor Federation. Linda is an inspiration, and she's really doing the work out there to move our movement forward. And I am so grateful for her time and her wisdom. I know that it means a lot to me, and I'm sure that it means a lot to our listeners out there. What she said about needing to get involved in the personal being political, I think is more true now than ever, as we're seeing our very personal rights be attacked, particularly here in the state of Texas. So there's a long road ahead of us. And although it has been a difficult week, we can't count ourselves out yet, and need to continue to fight. We can't throw the towel in. There's too much at stake. So I personally feel a little bit re-energized after talking to Linda, and am excited to get to work with her going into November and beyond. I mean, she really is a powerhouse. So thank you guys for hanging with me during this solo episode. I don't know how anybody podcasts by themselves. I am excited for Rick to come back next week. Speaking of next week, we have a really exciting episode, although I'm pretty sure if you did a shot every time that I say the word exciting during these episodes, it would not be a work-friendly podcast. But next week we get to talk to Tavita Uhatafe. Tavita is amazing. He is a executive board member of the Texas AFL-CIO. He is the vice president of the Tarrant County CLC. You might know him as Mike Guy from Labor Notes. Tavita is everywhere all the time. So if you have ever looked at a strike photo and you're like, oh my God, I have seen that guy in another strike photo, you're not going crazy. He really is just always there. Wherever workers are striking or fighting for their rights, you can usually find Tavita with a picket sign behind them. So we are going to have Tavita on the podcast next week to talk about his adventures and his fight and his journey through the labor movement. If you can't possibly wait, which I wouldn't blame you, he did a really amazing episode of the Working People podcast with Maximilian Alvarez, and you should go listen to that to really get pumped up for next week. But once again, the episode will air on the 5th instead of the 4th because of 4th of July. So everybody have a great week and a great long weekend celebrating. Doesn't necessarily feel like the best time to be patriotic, but celebrate that long weekend with your loved ones, and then get back to it so you can listen to the podcast on Tuesday. Before we go, I definitely forgot to do this at the top, but wherever you are listening, please like and subscribe, listen to the podcast on whatever streaming platform that you get your podcasts. It really helps us to get the word out and make sure that people are seeing and hearing our stuff, and it helps you to make sure that you don't miss anything. And we have a really great community of our listeners online, gotten some great feedback. So we always want to hear from you. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, you can always email us at podcast@texasafl-cio.org. You can also follow us on all social medias. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Flickr, all those fun things at Texas AFL-CIO. So don't forget to follow us so you can keep up with what we're doing, what our affiliates are doing. And there's a lot of really amazing work going on. Like I said, it's been a tough week, I will not lie, but we are continuing to see the silver linings with workers organizing and standing up for their rights and standing up for each other. So injury to one is injury to all. And on that note, I will leave you, and next week you won't have to listen just to the sound of my voice on your own. So we can all be thankful for that. See you next week.